So, the collected essays class. So the last collected essays class of this series. So I'm happy that you're here and that you joined in this endeavor with the collected essays of Joel Goldsmith. And so there was quite a variety in this series, say subject-wise, and the way we looked at things. I really loved it so far. So this today will not be, say, that's another dimension to it, really. And so the title is then The Fourth Dimension, and that's a pamphlet from Joel, actually the transcript of a video. And do you know which one? It is the Thunder of Silence. It's like 14a or something. So that's like remarkable. So they made transcripts and put them into a booklet and put them into a collected essays and all this. So that's one way of doing that, and I actually love it because now you can read it really well. And the Thunder of Silence is a beautiful, say, actually pretty long tape. They're available on YouTube, of course, and at Acropolis and the Infinite Way office, of course, too. So the Thunder of Silence is in fact the title, and part of it is about the fourth dimension. So that's why when you step into this, say into this pamphlet, it immediately starts with the fourth dimension, which is not the case in the tape. So some introduction would also have been nice in the book to make it even like more complete in that sense, but that would be a different title then. It would probably be called The Thunder of Silence. And maybe that book is available too. Yeah, I think so. At least as a transcript. So it's 14a and b is the Thunder of Silence, if I remember that well. So listen to it one more time, because I did it too. It's like, that's a really beautiful talk too. So you see that the first talks that Joel did, the first 20 or a little bit more, they are really like the foundation of the Infinite Way, of what Joel has literally taken down as ideas. So it's I don't know if the 55 Honolulu class it is or something like that. I think so. And he, see, I'm not very scriptural, as you can see. So I've read it, but then I forget about it because like dates don't really interest me in that sense. But I see that when Joel put down this foundation for the Infinite Way, you see all aspects of his teaching is, say, mentioned for the first time. So with the idea of the fourth dimension. And so today we do that. We look at this pamphlet as if it is almost like a separate book from the rest, and forget about, for now, about the tape. So the fourth dimension, where's this about? What is it? You've heard about it, you've read about it. Like, I think Joel made maybe 5 or 6 videos with the title, The Fourth Dimension. And when you're in spiritual circles, so to speak, when you meet others on the path, the idea of the fourth dimension will come up. And maybe even the fifth or the seventh or the eighth dimension. But at least the fourth dimension is something you get in touch with, because it really is like the that what is so different about not, say, it's not human at all. And that makes it like a different quality almost, it seems like. But today I want to do it a little different. So I'm actually going through a couple of, say, subjects that would be necessary to agree to in order to be lifted up into the fourth dimension. Without knowing what it is, it will become clear by what you need to agree on before you can enter it. Then you know what it's not, so to speak. So one of the fundamental agreements that we encountered today is this, which is really very much to the point, so to speak, especially after this Easter moment that we had, say, last week. So what is so fundamental about Easter? Like, well, the surmounting of death, right? It's like, is Jesus dead or is Jesus alive? Is Jesus alive? Yes. He's the Christ. He's Jesus Christ. He's alive. Is he living right now, today? Yes. Did he die on the cross? No, he did not die on the cross. No. So the Christ never died on the cross. So you want to hold on to an idea of a Jesus on the cross, like we still see them in churches and maybe sculptures all around the town. At least in my town, there's a lot of sculptures with hanging Jesus, nailed to the cross, still dead. Well, if that would be my savior, I wouldn't really be attracted to it. It's like, no, that's of course is not my savior. So the fundamental agreement I ask for is then this, in fact, like, do you recognize and are you admitting that there's no such thing as death? That when Jesus resurrected, I resurrected. Like, whether I have a vivid remembrance of that right now in my awareness or not, I know this to be true. So this is one of the most fundamental agreements that I ask of you today. And not necessarily but I'm using this. I am using myself, as the one who's asking you this to do this. And so there will be more, parts that you recognize as human law that you have to agree, well, that's not it anymore. That's not it. So when we do this in order to, pass our test, so to speak, to have a conscious experience of being lifted up into the fourth dimension. So just as in our meditation a moment ago, like we had just a meditation, which we used the words, we're under the law of grace. We're not under the law of matter. So my question to you is, are you willing to admit that you're actually not under the laws of matter? And do you have any idea what that actually means? Because it is really liberating to know what that actually means. So, are you willing to agree with me on this, that there's no such thing as the laws of matter, the laws of medical, the medical materia medica, and the laws of physicality, basically? Are you willing to consider this, at least? To consider it. Maybe not directly agreeing with me, but are you willing to consider this as a possibility for you to enter into a whole different experience of yourself, namely a spiritual experience instead of a physical one? So that would be then another agreement. Do you agree with me that you're not a physical being, but that you're a spiritual being? So now we already have 4 on the list. And we can still continue because there's more, of course. So one thing that Jesus says and that Joel is repeating in almost all his talks is like, I'm not of this world. I'm not of this world. Like, no, I've overcome this world. Following the words of Jesus, I have overcome this world. So are you agreeing with me that there's no such thing as this place that we call, your world? Are you admitting that to me? Are you agreeing with me that there's no such thing as this place? So, or at least, are you willing to consider that as an option for yourself to experience something else? Actually, we all have experiences that we lose track of time and that we lose ourselves in what we're doing or something. Like that you you sink into something. Does the world exist at that point? Well, it didn't matter to you. You lost yourself in what you were doing or what you were occupied with. So that's just an example of how you can experience that. So you can compare it to how children play. It's like children forget about time. They're not concerned about time because, hey, it's made up. Time is also an agreement that we made before. But so are you willing to admit that time actually does not exist? That it's a made up idea? So then, talking about time, if you really take a look at it, at where you are, say, physically composed of, you see that, I don't know how much you know about, say, this body, but it has genetic material. And this genetic material is transferred from one to the other. It's like, yes, this is how that works. So there's a mixture of genetics. There's suddenly a new being, what appears to be, and there is another being. So they mix their genes together in a certain way, and there's another being. So it's like there's continuously a transfer of genetic material from one to the other. And what is this genetic material? It's like, that's your script, it's like a script of the physicality of this that you received from before, from the past, so to speak. It's like your timeline is in it. The elders are in it. The people that went before are in that mixed. And you take that with you. So it's basically a memory package that you carry with you. So this bodily thing is a pack of memory. It's like a huge memory bank. So that is not you. That is your memory bank. It's like these memories come up and you look a certain way, you respond a certain way, and all this. So the agreement that's connected to it is like, are you willing to take a look at the idea that this is not you, but this is the genetic memory that you carry with you in this physicality that you call yourself? But are you agreeing with me that it has nothing to do with who you truly are, but that it is an idea about a past from which you seem to come and continue on this timeline, what it looks like? So in fact, the question then is, can you agree with me, or at least consider this idea that there's no such thing as a continuity of time? So that's the sixth agreement then that we have to set up. So all these agreements that we're actually making now are a prerequisite for realizing or coming into a direct experience of the fourth dimension. And how that exactly works is what Joel tries to convey in his chapter, in his pamphlet. So I'll read the first paragraph in the book. I got the pamphlet in front of me, and so I got this from the pamphlet itself. I don't know if the same page as the collected essays, probably not. So the fourth dimension, it's on page 1 of the pamphlet, the fourth dimension. When the Master, Christ Jesus, says, I can of mine own self do nothing, the Father within me does the works. When Paul says, I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me, they are revealing the fourth dimension of life, in which you do not live by bread alone, nor by personal will, effort, or even personal wisdom. I'll repeat it once more. When the Master, Christ Jesus, says, I can of my own self do nothing, the Father within me does the works. When Paul says, I live, yet not I, but the Christ within, but the Christ liveth in me, They are revealing the fourth dimension of life, in which you do not live by bread alone, nor by personal will, effort, or even personal wisdom. So that is our starting point. That's why I said, like, this is actually coming from the middle of a talk of Joel, the middle of the talk. So there's something going before that. But here in this pamphlet, we step right into it, into the idea of the fourth dimension. And the fourth dimension, say the Christ dimension, in fact, is what Joel is referring to here. I of my own self can do nothing. It's like it has nothing to do with my personal will. It has nothing to do with what I think I am. It has nothing to do with, say, the I am that I think I am. But this has to do with the Christ. He is living in you. He's your I. He's your I, and he's your, say, he represents you. And still you're gonna be yourself. So don't think that you're not gonna be yourself. Like, no, this is so intensely personal, subjective. It is totally you in your Christ mind, having experience of, say, communication. So that's so well to remember. Otherwise you think that you're going to be some kind of something else or so, where you cannot be yourself anymore. It's like, no, this is so yourself that you want to return back to that. You will recognize it completely as an experience of yourself. So that takes away a lot of fear about it, maybe. There comes a point in your experience, I continue reading, there comes a point in your experience when you are not solely you, but in which you are conscious of a presence within. This point of transition comes when the presence becomes real within you and takes over your life. From the moment of this transitional experience, you do not again take any anxious thought for life, because there's always this Christ or divine presence, and it brings to you the harmonies of your daily experience. In this transitional experience, you pass from merely a human being, by being merely a human being, thinking your own thoughts, planning your own life. Whoa, wait a moment. So this is the practicality. I love that. So let's stand still here. Being merely a human being is then thinking your own thoughts, planning your own life, arranging your own affairs to a place in consciousness where you really and truly feel this inner presence. So there's a transition in that I didn't really read well, but I will do it again. Here it is. In this transition from experience, from being merely a human being, thinking your own thoughts, planning your own life, arranging your own affairs, to, and this is then the other part, a place in consciousness where you really and truly feel this inner presence, and you then live as if you had stepped aside a little, say 2 or 3 inches to the side of yourself, and are watching your life being lived for you. Okay, so now we're talking. So now we're talking about the agreements too. So Joel shares a couple of them. It's like you're not trusting your own thoughts anymore. You're not following your own thoughts anymore. You're not planning your own day anymore. You're not doing a couple of things anymore. You know, it's like all the human things that you're so used to. You're not going to apply that anymore in order to experience this inner presence. Because when you feel this inner presence, when you feel guided, when you feel, that you are being lived in a certain sense, in your new experience of yourself, you see no need to do so. Then it's like, no, everything is already arranged. Like, you can't believe it, but it really is. Everything is already arranged. There will be something to do for you. Like Joel gives the experience of gives the example of, yes, I know there will be some letters on my desk in the morning. There will be something for me to do today. That is going to be given. And the beautiful thing is that when you allow that process to occur to you, and when you enter into this, in fact, stepping back out of your go modus, it's like you step back and let the light lead you the way. Then you see everything is so perfectly arranged. Oh my God, that I never saw that. That I've been in the way of that. I'm literally in my own way in order to come into this effortless stream of, say, continuity that's given to me. Everything is in the right place. It doesn't take much effort. It is not like struggle. It is, say, accounted for. It is supported by the universe. It is in perfect harmony with the universe. Like, you can't believe it. And you thought that it wasn't like that you had to do all this for yourself in order to survive. But giving that up and entering into stepping back 2-3 inches to the left, so or to the right, whatever you want, or backwards, that's nice too. When you do that, then you see everything falls perfectly into place. It's just different than what I think that's supposed to happen. So this is entering into the fourth dimension of life, because it has nothing to do with your organization of the third dimension. So it is literally given you. It comes from outside of time and space. That's why it's so effortless, because the whole universe supports you. And don't forget that actually it's happening right now. And to have you all have examples of that. Like, you all have experiences like that, and one to mention is this. It's like there's nobody that is listening now. There's no one that was, for instance, in a forest for some time and suddenly feel the communication that's going on there. It's like you suddenly, it's completely quiet. Oh, look at this. Oh, how lovely is that? Like, suddenly you're overwhelmed with stillness and with communication. It's like, how beautiful, look at this. Or listen to these birds singing to me today. It's like, how beautifully, how well is that organized? Like, there's such a perfect intelligence behind all of this that you don't know what to say. But you just had to get out of the way for a moment in order to become present where you actually are. So that's just one example, but it's a very lovely one. You can practice easily, and so that is a meditation. What is a meditation? Coming into presence, coming into the realization. I step back, and God is leading the way. Like, the light is giving me in every moment. It is all perfectly falling into place. If I get out of the way with my ideas about how it should look and what I think that I have to do. So I know from speaking from my own experience that what I thought I had to do would always exhaust me, and I would always do too much, thinking that I needed to do more and more and more. And now coming back to, relax, wait a minute. No, step back. Wait, no, you will be told. No, it's all perfectly, say, worked out here. You just wait and listen, or you just be present here. And you will be told exactly what to do, where to go, and who to see and what to say. Like, that's all, say, part of this present memory, the present memory, not a genetic memory, not a memory coming from say, your physicality. No, this is coming from outside of this dimension, coming from the timeless dimension. And that is lovely. That's great practice. That is what we do during healing moments that we have together. That is what we practice when we meditate. That is what we love about being in nature, or becoming still in places, or all that, what makes you really present here and forget about the world. See, immediately when you step back into the world, you can be confused about the idea that you think that you are in that world and that you're part of it and that you're in time again, or all the confusion and anxiety that comes with that is a natural response, but a misconception in a certain sense, because you're not here. You have overcome the world. Like, you're not under the laws of matter. You're not under the laws of the world. You're not even in this world. Like, you're no more really here than I'm really here. And that is the spiritual dimension of existence. It's like that's where you come to life when you realize that. So it's just, say, agreeing with some of the agreements that I came up with. It's like, just agree with that in order to experience something else. And you see that it just happens because of you cannot hold on to, say, physical laws and think that you can experience a spiritual dimension. That's why I say this. It's like, no, letting go of that, meditating, feeling that you're being lifted up, feeling your certainty grow into light and love, and going from there. Like, these are some of the aspects that you will certainly encounter in becoming free of this world definition. So let's see what Joel shares with us. So in this on page 3, if you are in spiritual work, the healing or teaching ministry, you will find patients and students being led to you. And all will be spiritually healed and led by the Spirit. Thereby you would understand that I live, yet not I, but the Christ liveth my life. The Father worketh hitherto, and I work. So it comes, at this point you become the instrument for the operation and activity of divine consciousness. See, and that seems like taking on a certain, job or something, or mission, but it's easier than that. So in your remembrance and in your practice of this, like what we practice during the spiritual healing class, or even in this class too, is like you take a moment to, say, come in touch with your own spiritual dimension, and you allow, in fact, healing to occur, to be aligned in the certainty of the Christ. So then that is a healing moment for you, and that shifts everything in you, and in that people can come to you for suddenly they're attracted to you to come and talk, or to share their story, or who knows what they're going to do. At least your presence is going to be different, because you literally carry that light with you and shine it into the world. So you can call that already your ministry if you want. But we talked about that last week too, in terms of the ministry and the idea of instrument. It's like an instrument doesn't evaluate the concert. Like, if you're an instrument, you're not able to evaluate the concert. So, in other words, you don't look for the outcome of your presence. You're not concerned about it whatsoever. Like, it is not up to you to decide how things should look. So, and this is in healing work essential. Just like, you're not concerned about the outcome. You don't have to see results, in other words, because you're not able to evaluate what you have. You didn't even do it. So, and there, in the essence of that, like, there is nothing to heal. So there's a growing certainty in your awareness that this is working, because you felt that presence. This is all that matters. you growing your certainty in this. And in fact, say losing or say releasing fear. Because all these things that I share can generate fear in you because you don't seem to be familiar with it because you actually trust your own ideas. Like if you would have a slight experience in this, like if you would have a glimpse of what I'm saying, then it's not terrifying at all. No, it is really comforting. And yeah. That's it's really based also on the undoing of the fear for all these ideas that you have, and the origin of that fear we can talk about at another time, because it has certainly like an origin in the idea of separation. But since you're not separate, like I and my Father are one, it says here on page 4, I and my Father are one, but the Father is greater than I. And this is great. This is not duality or separation. And this is what I mean. It's like the fear that you have comes from an idea that coming back to your Father, coming back to the kingdom, engenders fear. Well, that's insanity, as you might know. It's like that is really craziness, of course. So you are created by God, and there's no such thing as separation, and now you're afraid to return back home? Why is that? There's a reason for that you're afraid. But there's no need for it. So in fact, there's no reason for it at all. It was just like an irrational idea that you had, that you could be separate. So in this, hearing these things speeds up your return. I know that. You know, it helped me, absolutely. It's like, yeah, wow, that doesn't make any sense. I'm created by my Creator, my loving Father who pours love over me all the time, continuously. He's leading me into the laws of grace. And I'm going to be afraid of my return back home? No, that doesn't make any sense. So are you agreeing with me? So this would be a great agreement too. Are you agreeing with me that it doesn't make sense to be afraid of going back home? And you say like, well, yeah, fear is not rational. It is a feeling. Sure, there's a feeling, but it is connected to an idea. And so you cannot, it's like this is all ideas. So even your fear is based on an idea. See what's in this chapter? Can you believe it? It's unbelievable. So it's full. It's full, and it has everything to do with your essence. So we're never going to make it to the end of that chapter. We don't need to either. But I want to see a certain word. Oh yeah, this is interesting too. So those engaged in this on page 6, those engaged in the spiritual ministry quickly learn that it provides everything necessary to fulfillment of the message. Since my doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me, whatever is necessary for the expression of the message, be assured of this. Whoever is inspired as the messenger is supported, maintained and sustained by that which is the source and inspiration of the message. See, and then you think like, well, that's like you're sent on your mission and you got to do this. Sure. But don't forget that where you return to is complete fulfillment, and where you return to is, say, complete and whole. That is your essence. That is not your mission. It is your essence. So it's like, no, there's not going to be missing anything. No, you will be completely supported because that's your natural state, to be completely supported. It is just by the limiting ideas that you hold about yourself that you experience limitation. But here in your, say, awakening ministry, your spiritual ministry of awakening to the truth of who you are, you're going to be supported, because more and more you're going to trust that this is really true, that it's actually working. So you can ask for anything in that sense. I know that when it started, say, working for me, that I was amazed how this works. Like suddenly I got tickets to go to America to meet my teacher. Suddenly I got this and that. Like I was completely supported. And I thought like, wow, that is so great. How can you stay in that place where everything is coming to you that you need? It's like, well, that's a good question. You know, it's like, that's exactly what is given you in every moment. If you step aside like 2 or 3 inches and get out of the way and allow the light to show you the way, then that is included. See, all ideas, and this was already one of the agreements that we had made before, it's like all these ideas of limitation, lack and disease, disaster are not coming from God. I have nothing to do with your spirituality. It has to do with the laws of matter, and actually they don't exist. So that's quite something. So believing these ideas, believing the ideas of the world, you encounter the effects of these ideas. And you don't like that. It makes you depressed. It makes you anxious. It makes you maybe angry. Or, it makes you feel lonely and separated. But it's a consequence of valuing anything there. So that's why I came up with the agreement. Can you agree that you're not of this world? And say, included in that is in fact the liberation of you, is in fact the release of this, self-made identity. So this is what I love about what Joel shares, and what is pretty amazingly written and given to us. So he's bringing it back to, say, some practicality. So here's one more. Still on page 6. Those engaged in business, arts, professions, or home duties immediately feel the release from personal responsibility, as it becomes the soul and activity of their being. Now you understand that when Jesus speaks of the Father within, he speaks of the divine power and presence that animated his being, and that this was the healing power, the power that multiplied the loaves and the fishes, the power that raised Lazarus from the dead. See, this is also so good to read. It's like, what was emanating that? That's coming from out of times, like it's coming from the 4th dimension. It is not confirming anything here. It is just giving back the perfection of, say, not from here. So the perfection of the love of God is what is being represented. So did Jesus do these healings, or did Jesus do this breaking the loaves and fishes until everyone was fed? Like, well, the principle behind it was that it literally is given to him, through him, and being exposed here. So that's what happens to you too when you decide you want to do this. You want to, say, demonstrate this. This literally starts to happen for you. So that's why one thing is then to put Jesus on a pedestal, so to speak, or to put Jesus on crosses here. Then in the town where I live, they're all Jesuses on crosses. A monument to remember something. So you see that doesn't make sense, because it's not about making Jesus special. So it is like, no, putting Jesus it's like Jesus Christ in the proper position of, yes, he inspires the miracles. He literally shows you how he performed these. Not by saying like, yeah, look at me, how great I am in doing miracles. No, it is not I that do the works, like the Father does the works. So I'm just the instrument. I'm just passing this on to you. I'm here, the light of the world. It's like the light is shining through me, but I'm not, say, the creator itself. See, being an extension of, like, that is what Joel tells us here too. It's like you're an extension of the love of God. You're an extension of it. And a whole part of it. Complete and whole part of it. Okay, so there's more in here, I know that. Oh, wait. Do you see, Joel says here, there is a spirit in you. There's a divine spark, which we call the Christ, which lifts you into the fourth dimension of life, into a state of consciousness in which you do not live by personal efforts, personal will or wisdom, or even personal health, in which you find yourself empowered from within, from the kingdom of your own being. So there's a spirit in you, there's a divine spark, which we call the Christ, which lifts you into the fourth dimension of life, into a state of consciousness in which you do not live by personal efforts, personal will or wisdom, or even personal health, in which you find yourself empowered from within, from the kingdom of your own being. See, that is where it happens. That is what you are familiar with, listening and reading Joel, listening to this scripture that we share. Like, you know that. You know it. So now it's connected to the idea of the fourth dimension too. It's like it's not from here. It's out of time. It's not in this dimension happening. You are the only bridge or the link to this dimension that you think that you find yourself. So now, receiving this as your personal individual experience for yourself, you take this with you wherever you go, and in that you also, if you stay right here in that alignment, you also recognize that you are led to certain places, that you find yourself in certain circles suddenly. You find yourself meeting some persons. It's like there's no coincidence in that whatsoever. So there's like a perfect plan for all of that. By you staying in your center and radiating that love that you remember because you practice this, then it is not anymore that you lose yourself in the world that you find yourself. That you recognize it as a great possibility to recognize everyone as being part of this universe, as being part of this communication. And basically you're recognizing your saviors in everyone that you meet. So it is not anymore a personal project or a personal achievement to come into Christ realization. Like, that is impossible. So the greatest thing of the Christ realization is then seeing how everything is related, and that it's all related to you. That there's no part where you are not part of. That you're completely connected to every aspect of creation. And that makes you incredibly happy, because that feels so good to see that. It's like things are opening up. It's like nothing to be afraid of. It's like, what could possibly happen to me? Coming from my center, recognizing what is given me, seeing that in everything that I encounter. So that is the invitation, and that is the a vocation of the experience. So the direct realization of that is what we practice, and where we come closer to, and where we make like quantum leaps too, by standing still, by realizing, oh yes, one option during the day is always step back. Let God lead the way. Step back, go 2 or 3 inches to the left or right, step backwards. Let the light do the work. Oh, this is a situation that so much is asked of me. No, stop right there. Step back. The light will do the work. And it will do it efficiently, quickly, and effortlessly. Like you would never come up with ideas like that. But the option of stepping back is going to help you a lot. And take all the effort that you think that you have to come up with and let it dissolve, because it's not needed. So that's not a fairy tale that I'm telling you, but this is the truth of stepping back and seeing that the light does all the works, and that it's perfectly taken care of, that everything will fall perfectly into place to your release and to the release of everyone. So with that I say Amen. So thank you so much for being part of this collected essays series. So this was the last class for now from this series, and I'm really happy that you're part of this, and hope to see you soon. Thank you.